host, and Zilfia's already in the chat. Welcome, Zilfia.
Zilfia,
Good morning.
we should have a perfect attendance award for you. Like
Yeah.
if you every chat for a year,
Yeah.
we're gonna send you a certificate with custom art.
Yeah.
I've decided if you make it. Today is September. You remind me of it. If you join every chat for a month, this is only for Zilfia because I can't afford to do more. Then I will commission art of you for your perfect Twitch attendance. That's what I'm saying.
Well, we don't want to put too much pressure on her to like.
But yeah, like she's like sick. She's like, no, I gotta make it this chat.
It crawls out of bed.
Yeah. So if you're first time chatter, Understone's Gamer, I am Kurt. This is Darren. We are the team behind, at least most part of the team behind Legends of Avallen, Songs of Ironstone.
Yeah.
Darren lives in Wales. I live in Japan. Zilfia in the chat. She's a long time listener, long time caller, and yeah, it'd be hilarious. That crack would fuck up if you had perfect attendance. But yeah, how's everything on your side of the world? How's everything on your island? We both live on islands. How's everything on your island?
Yeah. I remember I used to say that a lot. No, not a lot, but a few times I mentioned to my students when I lived in Japan. It kind of came to me. I was like, wait, Japan has a royal family. The UK has a royal family. Japan has a strong cultural emphasis on manners and queuing and not saying what you're really thinking and implying it instead. And very much so does the UK. They're both island nations off the coast of a large continent. They both have kind of isolationist policies that make them stay separate from the continental mainland culture, and they both think of themselves very differently from that cultural mainland, and there's a lot of similarities there. They're very much like symmetrical island nations across the other side of the world from each other, spanning Eurasia, right? And I said that to my students, and they looked at me like, what are you talking about? We're nothing alike, no way. And I felt like it was like the instinctive exceptionalism coming out and just like completely avoiding that. They're like, what? We don't have a royal family. And I'm like, yes, you do. It's the emperor. And they're like, yeah, it's different from a king. I'm like, it's not. But yeah, they completely denied it. It blew me away. I was like, it's so obvious. I was like trying to like come together and show like some kinship and, but yeah, they said no.
Well, they were also kids, right? They're like high schoolers, right?
Yeah, they didn't care. But
it's a little bit different. Like, no, that's totally different.
Yeah.
STD exists in Japan. That's why we can fool around and nothing will happen. I don't know if you know about that whole cliche. Are you?
What cliche? Sorry, I missed what you said.
That there are no STDs in Japan.
Oh. Yeah, sure.
And it's because sex education here is so terrible that people don't know what STDs are. No, the other thing is that both islands historically have terrible Mexican food. Historically, I mean, it's gotten better here. Shout out to Sayulitas in Nagoya, best Mexican food in Nagoya. Probably it's quite good. It's both island nations both have. I mean, I think the one thing though is the UK doesn't have as many earthquakes, right? Do you guys have earthquakes?
I mean, we've had a few, but they're not really earthquakes yet. Oh, we also both drive on the left as well.
You drive on the left, yeah. It's interesting that you don't have, because you're an island nation, so that means aren't you on some kind of plate?
But we became an island when ice sheets melted. Like we are attached to the mainland. There was a crossing that existed, and then it's kind of sunk. So it's not like an island that's been formed. At least Japan, recently, anyway. Yeah.
Well, I'm from America. That's why my geography and knowledge of is so terrible, as you can gather. It's partially true. But I do like England. It was always my dream to go to a castle in the UK, and I did that when I visited you several years ago before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because I've always loved role playing games and stuff.
And did it live up to your expectations?
Dude, it was the best. If you guys know about this. Oh, so Zilly, you guys get blasting quakes in Canada.
What's a blasting quake? I don't even know what that is.
Is that like fracking? You mean like fracking? Because if people are fracking near you? Is that what that is? You know what fracking is, right?
Yeah. I studied it in my PhD.
Oh, that's true. Sorry, God, you're a doctor of fracking. What am I talking about? You know what fracking is, right? The guy with a PhD in the earth fracking.
Yeah, in sand earth physics. You're in a mining town. Wow, also literal explosion earthquakes. That's crazy. Yeah, that's cool. Is it cool? I mean, it sounds cool to me. I'm like, wow, explosions and earthquakes, but it's probably not cool, right?
You should do some research there. So you can just go there and do some research. Yeah. Anyway. Yes. UK lives in my expectations. I want to go back soon, hopefully. Do some more research and maybe visit other places in the UK that aren't London for one day.
Yeah.
And Wales
So
for 2 days.
speaking of, we have a Kickstarter coming soon, and if it goes really well, we can afford to bring Kurt over to Wales and stay with us for a bit. So Kurt, maybe link that in the stream pin like you've been doing.
Yeah.
Streaming still now. Yeah.
Well, here's a stretch goal: send Kurt to the UK.
Yeah.
That's a terrible goal.
It's a personal stretch goal for us.
Personal stretch goal, yeah. Don't worry, you guys don't have to pay for that.
Okay,
you'll get all
it's interesting. Okay, cool. Good. I'm glad it's not terrible.
Going to mod view here, so I can ban the inevitable bot.
You need to teach me how to do that because I haven't figured it out yet. I need to get more familiar with Twitch. Anyway, that's a topic for another time.
Yeah, it's a topic for another time. We'll have a whole stream dedicated to that. So yeah, UK's the source of fantasy, and word on the street is that you've been knee deep in fantasy from a new game that you've been playing. Is that right? Is that wrong?
Yes, that is right. So it's kind of common knowledge, at least in the Discord now, that I am a huge fan of Guild Wars 2, which is a MMORPG that released 12 years ago now, and I played it at launch because I was very much into Guild Wars 1. I played that a long time ago when I was like 15 to 16, I think. And that was maybe that's a super side topic, but yeah, anyway, Guild Wars 2 is actually inspired Avallen as well. The Avallen art style was inspired by Guild Wars 2's concept art and art style. It's a very painterly brushstroke aesthetic. And when I dreamt about my role-playing game book, all I could think about was that. Like, I wanted it to be brushstrokes on a blank white page. Very much inspired by Guild Wars 2, so there's a big influence there. It also had an influence as well on me design-wise too. In Guild Wars 1, the game was so cool, dude. When it came to it was inspired by Magic the Gathering. Guild Wars 1 was slightly. The skills are like collectible cards. No, they're not actually cards, although they're represented on like little things. They have a little artwork. But you go out into the world and you find them. It's like the dream of what a collectible card game would be. You have to go out and you discover these powers, these abilities that you gain access to. And they're always in certain places, you have to do certain things to acquire them, and then you build your deck. Now, in Guild Wars, it wasn't a deck, it was your skill bar, right? You had, I think, eight skill slots, and you could put whatever skill you wanted in any of them to build your build. And you found these skills throughout the world by doing things. And then when expansions came out, or new content, you would go to that new world and you'd find new skills, and then you'd also get to play with those as well. And there were, I think to begin with, 6 professions, maybe it was 8 professions. So we're talking traditional fantasy classes like Necromancer, Ranger, Elementalist, Warrior, Monk was like the healer kind of type, and Necromancer. And then, but the cool part was you picked your profession and you gain access to their skills, but you could also choose to dual class. And you could pick any other class that you wanted to. And then when you did, you gain access to all of their skills as well. So you can make an Elementalist Necromancer, or a Warrior Elementalist who would imbue the weapons with like fire or ice or whatever. Or you could make a Monk Necromancer who could like heal people and then sacrifice their minions to give you energy and things like that. So those super like, hang on.
Did this come right after World of Warcraft? Was it released like?
I think it was the same time, or possibly slightly before. I forget the exact timeline, but it was very much in that space. And the Guild Wars 1 wasn't really an MMORPG as one might think of one. It was all the content was like instance-based, where you took your party into it. It was like a dungeon in the open world. You couldn't like meet people in the open world, but you could meet people in the hubs. So it was an online game, but you could play it solo as well.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, they had the class system where you mix and match classes to gain all of their skills and combine them together. And I've always loved that. Because it kind of also reminds me of Magic the Gathering, where you take 2 colours and put them as a colour pair, right? And so we added that. I added that into Avallen, where all the legendary paths are 2 classes put together, right? So if you're a gladiator, then you have access to the Reaver and the Warrior schools. And if you're a Fey Touch, you have access to the Reaver, which is like our rogue, and the Mage schools, which is like our tricksy magic kind of thing. So I got that straight from there. It's kind of been ingrained with me since a kid that it's just super fun to mix and match things together and give players that creativity by saying, here's 2 things, or here's 5 things, but you can put them together in any ways that you want, and now suddenly there's 25 options, right?
Which is a very magic pioneered with their system as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because like the interesting thing too is you look at the history of gaming and role-playing games, recombining things was very punishing once upon a time, right?
Mm-hmm. Like you mean like dual classing?
Yeah, dual classing, like in like original Dungeons & Dragons, like D&D and D&D Second Edition, like they really didn't want you to. Hey, what's up, Giga? Giga's in chat. Nagoya locals, no doxing.
Oh, really? Cool. Yo, Giga, have I met Giga before?
Yes, you have.
Oh, sweet. Cool. Well, now I'm tantalized to discover who they might be.
I'll tell you after if he doesn't out himself.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it was punishing, right? Like I think you earned something like half the experience points or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And from a game design point of view, I guess I kind of get it. I don't know. I don't remember how it works because I haven't played much.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that they even allowed it in the first place, right? Like, and I guess, well, why would you, right? You have these classes, and I guess,
sure.
I guess maybe it's a natural thought that if a class is something that you train in, well, why can't I train in another class? I guess, right?
Yeah, and it became punishing to get the other class. Like it took a lot of experience points to gain levels, if I recall correctly. Partial, because it was OP to like be a wizard who could like swing a sword or whatever.
Yeah.
You'd have to pick parts of like the despite that not really being a thing till Dungeons & Dragons. It's just a game balance thing, I assume. But now, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a bit more freedom with it, right? A little more. Anyway.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I mean, actually, there's a lot of freedom, and that kind of comes out most notably in like Baldur's Gate 3, right, which is built on the 5e system, and I'm playing that with my good buddy Alex, aka Rythanos, playtester and fairy queen painter extraordinaire, and he's playing a bard, right? But he's taken like 1 level in fighter so he can get action surge, and he's like, yeah, this is like the best thing ever. You take 2 turns in 1 turn. It's super powerful. Yeah.
And that's what they feared.
Yeah.
That's their real desires. Wait, so you've been playing Guild Wars?
2.
So you said you were like delving into the lore, but wait, have you played Guild Wars from the beginning continuously?
No. And then this is part of it. This is part of what I wanted to bring up today. Is I didn't play Guild Wars 1. So Guild Wars 1 works in an interesting way. They released a game called Guild Wars. It then later on retroactively became to be called the Prophecies campaign, because they then released other campaigns later on, which were Guild Wars Nightfall and Guild Wars Factions. And each of those were actually standalone games. So I bought Guild Wars Factions and just played Factions. It had the same game, same rules, new classes, Assassin and Ritualist. So freaking good. And then if I wanted to, I could buy Prophecies and then go play that campaign. With the same character if I wanted to, I could go skip over there. But you didn't have to buy the first one to play the second one. They were just independent things. And then they released Nightfall, which is another independent thing. So it was a really interesting model, and they've released these within the span of 2 years. Like it was 3 games in 2 years or something like that. It was actually crazy. But yes, I played Factions, which was set in the like Asian-inspired continent. That was like my first exposure to like Chinese mythology, I guess, and stuff. Although interestingly,
but you never watched Jackie Chan Adventures?
Say again?
You never watched Jackie Chan Adventures when you were a kid? Is that not a thing?
Yeah, sure. I don't really remember there being like Chinese mythology much in there. Was it like urban Hong Kong?
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. Sorry.
So, I played that, and then I played Nightfall, which was the next one, and then they announced they're going to make a new game, Guild Wars 2, and then they had this really awesome opportunity where they had made this game, this world, and they were going to make a sequel to it, and they decided to set the sequel 250 years in the future from the Guild Wars 1 game, and because they knew they were developing it, they then made like a final expansion that bridged the 2 games narratively speaking. So they made an X-Pack that introduced new races, new cultures, new peoples, new ideas, knowing that they would be paid off 250 years later when the next game launched, right?
But they had flying cars and cyberpunk and stuff.
Yeah.
No, they did.
I mean, they introduced technology. They have engineers in the second game. There's like steampunk aesthetic. And then, there is some kind of cyberpunk stuff in... They did the same thing as Magic did, funnily enough, at the same time. You know,
Sure.
Kamigawa is like the
Got it,
cyberpunk
yeah.
world. They did the same thing with Cantha, which is the first the
Looks like
continent that I
steampunk.
played in Factions. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. We got some love for. Sorry, just quick aside. We have some love for Jackie Chan Adventures in the chat.
Yeah, Jack
Diego.
Jackson was good. Yeah, I watched that. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Feeling it. Anyway, we'll go back. We'll go back to Jackie Chan Adventures at a later point. So yes,
Yeah.
you've been. So you had a break, and then so you've been
Yeah.
delving back into.
So Guild Wars
or whatever.
2. Now Guild Wars 2 again. Artwork inspired me. Game design inspired me from Guild Wars 1. But then they have this awesome world taught. What's the word I'm looking for? Immersive storytelling method where the world very much informs you about what's going on when you adventure through it. There's things that happen around that if you pay attention and listen to what's going on, it tells you a story about what's happening in the world around you. And those stories carry on and are portrayed in the rest of the world. You can just run past and just do adventure stuff. But if you listen and click on things and interact, it really is like a world that teaches you about it by engaging with it. So the lore is fantastic. It's a great game in that respect. And they've just released a new expansion, and this expansion is blowing my mind because the story details it's touching upon were set up 12 years ago, 15 years ago when Guild Wars 1 launched. Now, I didn't know this because it was written in the original Guild Wars 1 manual. Like, you know how, you used to have manuals back in the day, right? And
I love that.
I know.
Yes.
And I would read them when I was installed. No, first I would read them on the drive home in my mum's car. We just bought a game.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Get the manual out, start reading it in the car. Then you have to install the game and wait for it to install. Another great time to read it. And when you're in the bathroom, another great time to read it, right? I still have a Diablo manual over there. That's like a treasured item of my possession.
Oh sure, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Baldur's Gate 2 manuals. Yeah, that stuff's awesome. They're like little lore booklets. They're so good. Anyway, so Guild Wars 1 had a manual that I didn't own because I didn't get the first game. I came in for the second game, Factions and then Nightfall. So I don't know this stuff. And there's this famous, I say famous, there's a character in Guild Wars 2 called Sol Delasio. And I didn't know anything about him. And everyone knows lots of things about him. He's really important. He appears multiple times. I didn't know why. It was because he's from the first bloody game that I didn't play, right? And it turns out his like origin story is in the manual. And we hadn't touched, the game hadn't touched on it all this time, 15 years, and now in this X-Pack it's slowly been revealed that we're now retracing his footsteps of the story that was written in that manual 15 years ago. So they haven't touched it till now, and then someone, a new writing staff member, has suddenly like delved into all of the old lore, and suddenly all these different topics are coming up from when the game was first started, from when Guild Wars 2 first started, from that 250-year gap. Like there's loads of different threads that are being pulled on and combined together into this awesome narrative that's slowly unraveling. And when we first started, we we're like, oh, it's a fun adventure, blah, 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 blah. But now we're kind of like getting into the details, so it's kind of like, oh shit, they're talking about this from here, from 15 years ago. Oh, they're talking about this from 12 years ago. Like, now it's like so clear that there's a plan. Like someone somewhere has got this awesome plan, and they pulled all these narrative threads together to make something. And now it's just exciting going, oh, anything could be relevant, right? Any old little piece of lore a while ago could still be useful. And the game's 15 years old, so there's so much of it. So now you're just kind of like, okay, what exactly did they say about this? There's like, this is awesome. Like, for example, today, shout out to Wooden Potatoes. Okay, Wooden Potatoes is a British YouTuber for Guild Wars. He's the lore guy. He's been there since the beginning, been doing lore videos from the launch. I watched his launch videos 12 years ago about the lore of the world, and he's back now still doing it. And he has these engaging streams where he talks for like 2 hours about just lore snippets and books and things like that before he even plays the damn game, right? And I love it. Anyway, we're on his stream today, and we found this lore bit from when Guild Wars 2 launched 12 years ago that mentions there are these bear people called Coden, okay? And they weren't in the first game, but the premise of the Guild Wars 2 is that these dragons rise up, and they're like these supernatural huge forces that consume magic, and it's like world-changing events. So when the dragons rose up, these Coden came down from the northern Arctic because they were interrupted by the ice dragon, right? And so that's why they're here in Guild Wars 2. And there's like this little lore bit that talks about their culture, and they have this role in their society called the Claw, which is like their warrior tribal leader, and then they have the Voice, which is their spiritual leader that speaks to Coda, their god. And there's just this slight one-sentence mention about this one faction of the Coden that that are voiceless. They don't have a voice. They only have a claw, so they have no spiritual connection. And this group ended up going further south than the first group did, and they were never seen again. That's all it was. Released 12 years ago, hasn't been touched until now. We've now realized that we've just met these coden. We didn't know it until someone picked up this lore piece a second ago. And we now know that, oh crap, this major character we've been trying to find, she was this voice that went missing. That's why they had no voice. There was this clawless person. We're now tracking this person down. It's like, oh crap, they've taken this character that was introduced a year ago. We didn't know much about them. And then they've tied it into this one paragraph, one sentence lore snippet that came out 2 years ago, and it connects perfectly. And it's like, they've answered a question that no one was asking. You know what I mean? This wasn't like anything anyone cared about. But they found it and made it super relevant. And now the rest of that paragraph is now being dissected by me. And I'm like, oh, is that because of this? Is that why this happened? Anyway, it's got me really fired up, and I'm super excited and invested in this world. And I've been reading Wikipedia articles in my spare time about obscure lore from this game. It's so damn exciting, to me anyway. And the end result of this is I want to make our game like this, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're touching on the difference between what makes really interesting lore, in my opinion, probably your opinion too, and really superficial lore, right?
Yeah.
And superficial lore are things where they touch on genre elements and maybe there's action between things. But really good lore touches on, it reveals itself, right? There's something revealed in the making of the lore. I think Tolkien was really big on that, right? Like where everything had to have fucking logic interconnected to it, and if it didn't, it would make sense in a way. And it sounds like what you're describing in Guild Wars 2 definitely has that.
But obviously, one thing that's crazy about it is that I don't think much of this stuff was planned. None of this stuff was planned. You know what I mean? Like that question that no one was asking 12 years ago. Like, oh, what is this bear people that don't have a voice about? I don't think they set up, oh, there'll be this character in 15 years' time, right? They just left.
No, of course not. They
just leave little sprinkles of like questions in, and then you get to pick it up later, right? And so that's
how good story. That's how good the world is like that, right? That makes it feel more organic. Like there's, like in reality, things don't actually have to make sense, right? Because things sometimes just happen randomly or whatever. But as humans, we're constantly trying to connect the dots, right?
Yeah.
But when you're a writer like these guys, if you just put a bunch of like adventure hooks or open-ended type things, and someone could pick it up later and use your imagination, or actually get hired and fucking write a thing about it, which is cool.
Yeah.
And the thing about, so I've never played Guild Wars 2, but we've talked about this before. Two of the writers are writers I'm a really big fan of, right?
Yeah.
I think Reese, is it Reese Bosby, and is it Jeff Grubb?
Yes, yeah. Jeff Grubb? Or just Grubb?
Jeff. I think it's Jeff Grubb.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. I don't remember if they're still there, but I think they were definitely there when Guild Wars 2 was first created, and the world building is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and Jeff Grubb is like a guy I grew up with when I played D&D. He wrote Jakandor. Do you know Jakandor?
Nope. Jakandor is.
Jakandor with this. Sorry. So again, this is the lore stream. So if you're lore and us waxing about lore, and then we're also going to write lore today. Then this is the stream for it. But Jakandor, if I recall correctly, is it was like an island at war.
Okay.
But it was actually really in two parallel campaigns. So you had the people who were like invading.
Oh sure, I've always wanted to do that. Yeah, like you run two campaigns and two perspectives for the same event at the same time, and then you have the parties meet in the middle at some kind of epic conflict.
I'm trying to look for the Jakandor description. It's okay. So Jakandor Isle of War detailed the Norm barbarians, the eastern side of Jakandor. Then Jakandor Isle of Destiny detailed the Charonti, the western side of Jakandor, and they're like the wizards, I think. And then Jakandor Land of Legend has additional information and adventures for characters from both civilizations. So you could buy either, and you could run a campaign. Yeah, you could run like two campaigns and that are at war with each other, kind of thing. That's fun. I don't know if it did well, but I always thought that was a fun idea.
Yeah, it's an awesome idea.
Jeff, he also worked on Dragonlance. He worked on Manual of the Plains. That's actually a big one too. Do you know the Manual of the Plains? Yeah.
Nope.
Manual of the Plains is the first edition book that described and fleshed out the idea of the multiverse.
Sure.
It was released in 1987. It was probably inspired by comics, but it was obviously immensely influential on all multiversal things in fantasy because it had like I think it fleshed out what the prime material plane was. what the astral plane, the shadow plane of shadow, all that stuff with like diagrams and shit.
And we've been kind of having this discussion ourselves internally, haven't we, about how we're going to.
Yeah, and maybe we'll talk about it today. But anyway, so the people that wrote this game that you like, one, Jeff Grubb is fucking awesome,
right.
and two, Rhys Soulsby. He used to write for Legend of the Five Rings, which I was obsessed with.
Yeah.
Like when I was like 10 or 11, I decided I didn't care about women as long as I followed the sword. Rhys Soulsby. No, just kidding. No, Rhys Soulsby is like this great storyteller, poet, writer, and during like the height of L5R, she helped write some really, really great shit. I think a little past the peak of it, but she was fantastic. And I would go to conventions as a kid, and she would be there, like celebrity. And my only ever LARP was in Legend of the Five Rings. And I think she was there, like writing the story as like people did like a winter court thing.
Cool.
And I was Toku, the Monkey Clan daimyo. This was so everyone was supposed to be like a samurai, and some people were dressed in kimonos, because it was a fucking convention and before you did. And and then someone else proposed to their wife during the event, like in character. It was like for real, proposed to her for real. It was fun. I mean, it was a fun time. So anyway, two great writers working on Guild Wars, and then whenever we write stuff, obviously you have to write like who you are, and the things that interest you. But at the same time, you think about the people and the books and the things that inspired you to get into this kind of stuff in the first place. And I think that's important to think about as well.
And I think the key thing I'm taking from it is to leave in mysteries, and when that's going to be interesting because obviously we're making a source book. Now, there's going to be lots of mysteries for the players because they have the player section of the source book and they don't have access to the game master section of the lore book, which will give them secrets and the answers to a lot of things that are going on so that they can have the players discover it, right? We want to feed them that stuff so they can give it to their players too. But still, we still want there to be mysteries that even the game master doesn't know. Because it gives them 100%. Space to make their own stuff, to give their own answers, and B, it means there's things for them to be invested in the future that we can then later reveal about the world.
Yep. In the original, in D&D Forgotten Realms 2nd edition, Symbia was just like, this is whatever you want to do with it. It was just like a map, and they didn't say like anything. Like they basically told the Dungeon Masters, this is the one realm in Forgotten Realms that you get to decide.
Oh, really? That's a cool concept. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they shared some stories about how some people interacted with it. But yeah, it was just like a short section. It's like a realm of merchants. So they give you some various details, but they make sure that there's spaces in the book where you can be creative, which is something I always like. And I think that's why Forgotten Realms is so successful compared to its sister campaign, which was also successful, Dragonlance.
Yes.
And you know about Dragonlance, right?
Vaguely.
If you're in the chat.
I know that it exists, but...
So Dragonlance was like a set of adventures, and they had like the characters.
Wait, so there's extra context here. Kurt is like a way more veteran role player than me. First of all, he's older than me, and then two, he got into it when he was younger. And I came into role playing much later in my life. And so this is invaluable for me. Kurt is like my RPG senpai sometimes, and he's like, here's all the stuff that we used to do 20 years ago, and the stuff that we were exposed to, and it's really useful to me. So there's going to be a lot of Kurt talking to me and explaining stuff, and I love it. So I'm super grateful that you have that wisdom that you can...
it's weird that I'm a gardener.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, literally I bought myself a D&D set when I was like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And that was like, this is what I want for my birthday.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Dragonlance, the reason why Dragonlance, I think was...
Wait. Sorry, another side thing. You just said that, or maybe remember that there's a kid or a guy who asked for Legends of Avallen for his birthday. I know that happened because he messaged me about it. So that just...
How old is he?
I don't know.
You mean for his... Wait, he did it for his kid?
No. He told me that he asked for Legends of Avallen for his birthday. And the reason why he mentioned that was because he asked me when it was going to be released. He wanted to know when it'd be released to see if he'd get it for his birthday. Oh. And it ended up being the next birthday instead, and he still wanted it a year later. So he got it for his birthday. Yeah. So just
you don't know how old this kid is.
I didn't pry. No, I didn't say how old are you, kid. No. But he's young enough that he's still asking for gifts from his parents, right? So,
that's fair. You should Okay, I'll talk to you after the chat. I'd love
Yeah.
to just write the kid a letter of like, hey, I heard you learn a book for happy birthday. Like, I asked for a role playing game on my birthday too, and
Yeah.
it took me
Sure.
like all over that kind of thing. But anyway, we'll talk about that after the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah. The point is, I hope that,
so
that
no,
that gives you some good warm fuzzies, knowing that you've helped make some.
No,
people,
I
yeah.
yeah, that's even more fuzzy, man.
Anyway, carry on.
Quick, sorry.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Dragonlance. Dragonlance was they have that's where Raceland is from, and like the twins and all these, and spawned a whole series of novels. But it was very set because it had a set story, right? And when people played Dragonlance, they wanted to play the characters from the story. Like it had a world around it, and it was cool, and I loved it. But it never got as much traction as Forgotten Realms because the scope felt more restrained because of how people interact with it, and they loved the story. It'd be like playing Harry Potter, and like let's say you were to play a campaign in the world of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. You're just gonna be
right. You're playing it during like the timeline of the Chamber of Secrets, and
you want to be Harry Potter's friend or some shit.
Right, yeah,
like,
and Harry Potter turns up, and then it's like, oh, what happens? And you're just sitting in the hall, and you're not having any adventures because Harry Potter's having all the adventures. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and it makes fine for to be a fan to read the story, but I think that is a constraint they ran into game wise, and had to rotate around that. But Forgotten Realms had a lot of different characters, and it was kind of broad, and because they put those things in, it was successful because Ed Greenwood was just trying to be Tolkien, right, in his own way. I think, like he just. Do you know the story of like when they bought Forgotten Realms? Do you know that story when Dungeons Dragons? When
you might have told me before. I don't know what story you're referring to. No, please.
Well, when they bought Forgotten Realms from Ed Greenwood, they were like, "Oh, we really liked your article. Do you have anything else?" Like this is when he was just writing articles for fun, and they were looking for an adventure world. Right. And they went to his fucking house in Canada, and they went to his house like, "Oh yeah, we really like that. Do you have anything else? Materials?" He said, "Yeah, come with me." And he literally had like a full filing cabinet, of shit that he just wrote for himself for fun. Yeah. So that's why the Forgotten Realms always felt so organic, because it was just like a fucking dude in his cabin just like, well, these are the fucking details of all the shit no one's gonna read.
Yeah, I remember actually. You made me. I say you made me like you forced it, but you suggested that I read one of his like articles about just a small town, right? And it was a town run by had these people in it that seemed rich and well-to-do, but it turns out they're like secret wizards or dragons in disguise or something, and there's like a whole council of them or whatever. And it was like super detailed and had a like intricate history, and it was just this one town. Yeah.
Wait, what? A town or city? Is that Waterdeep?
I don't remember. Maybe it's Waterdeep. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of places in like Baldur's Gate. When Baldur's Gate the video game came out, they chose Baldur's Gate because that was in the adventures books, and it had a city map and some details, but it was not it was just like a place.
Yeah.
Right. It was like and then they chose to flesh it out because again, that's what they chose to do. They had all these places that people could choose to delve into, and that makes for good lore as well. Now, it can get too expansive. Like there could be an argument that there's just like too much going on in Forgotten Realms or whatever. There's like a lot going on, and maybe that's homogenized now because that's like the main world for a lot of people, and that's what they think of when they think of D&D. But overall, I think it's a good thing.
It's a really big playground, and if there's something you want to play with, you'll probably be able to find it in there, right? So
So this book that we're working on now, Faeseeker's Guide to Avallen, the book we're making is, I think, both an homage to the things we like about lore, a toy for game masters that love lore and history, because we're also connecting it to history and folklore, which is the original fucking thing that inspires everything, right? Like that's why Lord of the Rings exist and Narnia and all this stuff, because those guys were nerds, but Dungeons and Dragons didn't exist yet. So what did you do? You had to write fucking fanfic. You had to write historical fanfic. Whatever. Shout out to Dante's Inferno for being the original fanfiction.
Yeah, a side part on Dante's Inferno. Now that I know more about Dante's Inferno, it makes me really mad when people say when hell freezes over.
Because
the most inner circle hell is frozen, so it's like it's already happened, bro. It's already frozen.
Yeah, and it's weird how it's weird how we interact with it. Like the whole thing with Hellfire. I'm sorry, I know we're getting Hellfire.
Yeah, no, but that's what we're here for. We're talking about lore today, so
it's all relevant. Yeah, the whole thing with like Hellfire and our perspective of doesn't that comes from the like the Protestant sermons of America, right? North America.
Maybe.
I forgot it. Like there's a famous series of
Yeah, but Dante's
orations.
Inferno was written in Italy, right? Hundreds of years before that. So
Yeah. But our view of hell now is affected by the North American Protestant view of hell that was sort of proffered to the audiences, even though it came hundreds of years after Dante's Inferno.
really, was it not a Catholic thing?
No.
We had like the Inquisition. We had witches burnt at the stake in Europe.
Yeah, but that's not like the perception of hell per se. I'm not a.
Yeah, neither am I. But I'm just guessing. If we were burning witches at the stake, surely that's hellfire imagery.
No, yeah, well, they're just killing them. No, because wouldn't that be righteousness? Like you're putting them in fire in order to like set
purify
like
them?
a righteous.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yes.
We're going off topic. The point is that's really inspiring me is that we've left open questions in our world lore before, right? Like where are the Exilian, the Raxian gods, and what's happening to them? Mysteries with the Penavunk other world and the Ever Elder and things like this. How the gods really became gods, how the gods originally defeated the Faeseeker. But these are like really, really big things, and what's inspired me from Guild Wars 2 is just throwaway lines about a tribe that does something different and then goes missing is something for intrigue, and I feel like I haven't done that enough, and we should include more things like that, where if we just talk about something, we can have something else that's just a little bit of a mystery and then move on. It doesn't have to be a huge thing.
I feel like in the stuff that I've helped write, I try to keep an eye on that because I love that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? So it's definitely something to keep in mind, and you can also go too far with it if it's just like your book is just like a billion unanswered questions, and that could also be kind of frustrating. But
every sentence ends with "Who knows?"
Yeah, it should feel like how our world feels, right? Where we know a lot, but there's also so much we don't know. And those are the things that really intrigue us, right?
I'd say our world 300 years ago.
No, I would say you wouldn't say in our world too. There's like unanswered questions about things that like people still want to know about, like what happened to Jimmy Cooper, shit like that. Like what happened to where's Jimmy Hoffa's body buried? Like he's dead. He's fucking in a field somewhere.
Where's Alexander the Great's body?
Yeah, just the fact that these things are unanswered, it fires the mind, and it fires up our mind. It makes us really interested. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about questions and lore, and we're getting to the. Does that mean we should say?
Yeah, I think we should transition now to voices.
Yeah, and mysteries are always asked. When you ask a question, there's always a voice behind the question, who has an agenda as to why they want the answer. Isn't that right, Darren?
That's so right, Kurt. So, speaking of voices, maybe we should talk about voices.
Yeah. So this book that we're writing, obviously there's a lot of information that we're putting together and stuff we've written, but something that Darren and I have been talking about and battling over, not battling, that's not the right word, but sure.
Just discussing,
violently arm wrestling over is voice of the book. Now, role-playing books can often be done just like matter of factly, and that can be okay as well. And sometimes they'll add tone to it or change how things are said to make it more old timey or whatever, what have you. What we've been doing is.
Well, actually, can I pull back a second? Like, I can point to 3 specific examples, right? There's the Theros, the Mythic Odysseys of Theros book, which we've been somewhat inspired by. Then there's Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, I think it's called. And then there's Volo's Guide to something, Waterdeep.
Anything.
Yeah, anything.
Oh, Volo's Guide to various things.
Anyway, these are all 3 recent releases by the elephant in the room, which is Wizards of the Coast at D&D. And they all 3 of them tackle the voice of the book differently. So the Mythic Odyssey of Theros, there is no unified voice in that book. It is a matter-of-factual book about Theros, and then usually in every opening chapter, there is a snippet written in world. That's often some kind of poem or song or piece of the Mythic Odyssey. I guess that's the lore. That's the voice, is the Mythic Odyssey of Theros, and it's a snippet from that Odyssey, like a piece of text written in the world that then kind of adds a little bit of contextual sparkle and sprinkle of lore fluffiness to that section of the book, and then they move on and start talking about it matter-of-factly. So that would be just, I guess, lore snippets and in-world writing. Tasha's Cauldron is also written very matter-of-factly, but there is the voice character of Tasha, who introduces the book to begin with in like a little letter, I think it is, and then she then appears once every few pages with a little quip that's in its own little coloured box and just says Tasha says something something something, is usually kind of comical or quippy or sarcastic about something you just read, and then says like dash Tasha, and then there's like notes left in places, like she's found the book and then written notes on it, like on the side margins basically. And then I can't remember the last time I read a Volo book or looked at a Volo book, but I imagine the Volo book is more written from his viewpoint in places where he will introduce a topic, right? He'll talk about this thing, and then it's matter of fact afterwards. Is that right, do we think?
So my favorite one of all time, Volo's Guide to Waterdeep, back in the day. Yes, it was written like a travel guide by Volo.
The whole thing?
But so it was written from his point of view, because it's written as a travel guide, so he's speaking matter-of-factly, but he's just writing a travel book, right? And then it was peppered with footnotes and corrections by Elminster.
Oh, so it's two characters. Yeah, that's cool.
Basically two, yeah. So it was basically Volo would talk about stuff and like start off, and there'd be a footnote saying this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. This is the real deal, which is a very clever way of doing it, right? Because then you get the fun, light tone, and then you get this matter of fact, like this is the secret thing that you should pay attention to. This is the fact, but it's from the point of view of another character who's also fun to read because he's like he's Forgotten Realms is Gandalf, right? So that was like one of my favorite books as a child.
So I'd say that's the broader setup then, the context. Like there's at least 3 different ways that you can craft the narrative of a source book, at least popular ways anyway. One being it's just matter of fact and the snippets from the world inside it. One is matter of fact and those little quips here and there, and then there's a character voice that introduces topics and is a voice throughout the book that sets things up when it's talking to you as a character. And I guess Volo's Waterdeep is a combination of that second one and the third one, right, put together.
Sure. I mean, what would you like? There's also game like Doomtown's also very good at this, using newspapers, and I guess that's kind of what Theros did, right? Using
in-world snippets.
In-world snippets and voices and interviews and stuff, which would be a lot of fun. So we've been writing. That's something that we've had a couple different iterations of stuff, but now we want to try to. I mean, hopefully we can settle it in this chat.
So like originally, I was kind of with option 1, where it would just be snippets of stuff here and there, of just things. That's kind of how I did the first book. There's like random quotes in places that are all sourced from different locations. There's stories about different people everywhere. It's all just more like a collage, right? And it's more of a collage. I definitely don't want to do number 2. I don't want just to have like quips here and there and that's it.
Sure.
And then so that leaves option 3 as well. And you've slowly, gradually convinced me that number 3 is a great idea, right? And we should have like a unified voice between the whole book and like a character that we're following along.
So the reasons for that is when we're learning about a world, it's easier to learn about a place when you have like a guide and a point of view, right? Because what happens is you might not, that point of view might not be accurate, and you can't say everything within a book. But if you know who that person is and you understand the point of view, you understand why they're talking about the things they're talking about, and you understand like what you agree with, what you disagree with, what they might be leaving out, etc. Like Volo is a good example of that, where he was like a wizard, but he's really concerned with like enjoying himself and sort of aggrandizing himself and being entertaining, right? So you have it in your head of like, oh, he's he might be putting me on, or you take things with a grain of salt, and that could be a lot of fun. But he still gives you enough information that you know that this is the thing that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that can be a lot of fun, and a combination is good too, right? Like
Actually,
you
I
do
guess another thing we can talk about as well is Magic the Gathering, right? Like,
sure, yeah.
Like world building in Magic the Gathering is done through artwork and things like that, but flavor text in the cards, and
Sure.
a lot of the flavor text often has very different mediums, right? Some will be a newspaper clipping, some will be a poem, some will be talking back and forth. It's kind of like this, again, that collage effect that introduces your world from lots of different angles and perspectives. And I think that's what inspired me a lot as well for the first Avallen rulebook, was showing lots of different things about the world from different angles and perspectives to kind of make it seem bigger and feel complete. Whereas this one person viewpoint thing, my concern is then that it can feel narrow, but I don't think that's the case because, like you said, it's a guide, right? So yeah, speak more.
Yeah, and I think another, again, okay, I'll talk about Harry Potter a little bit, even though the writer is very controversial and not that great of a writer, by a lot of people's metrics, but there's a reason why she was really popular, right? Because the lore that she crafted was interesting and expansive, and it felt like it was much bigger than what you saw through the funnel of one person's experience, which was Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
And it's that trope of like the person learning about the world and you're learning about it with them, right?
Yeah.
And that's of course the person that you choose for the narrative can be a novice, and so that could be interesting, but they can also be an expert, right? Like teaching you about something, being an actual guide. And a person, I mean, there's like travel writer. A writer who I think is really great for that is Hunter S. Thompson. Are you familiar with Hunter S. Thompson? Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
What? Sorry.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Okay, I did hear you correctly. Then no, I have no idea what that is.
Where have you seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? Well, anyway,
I have no idea what that is. Yeah.
Oh well, it's okay. Well, first of all, watch Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Because it's fucked up. And Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is basically this author. He was sent to cover like the races, like horse races or like some sort of race in Las Vegas.
Okay. And
then when they got the manuscript back, it talks about that a little bit, but it's mostly about Las Vegas and the politics and zeitgeist at the time, and him going on like crazy drug benders and like it's just. I mean, this is an extreme example, but it's so interesting because he talks about the thing he's supposed to talk about ostensibly.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is you're viewing the world in this mythology through a certain person's point of view that's very different from yours. He's a fucking super leftist, drug addict who can write like a motherfucker, and it's very cynical. And do yourself a favor, read some. Try just reading a few chapters from them. You might not. It's very American,
sure,
in the way he approaches politics and so on, but the way he uses his voice is really excellent, I think, and resonates with people. And that's the power of having a point of view, right? That people, even if they don't agree with it and it's foreign for them, you can explore a new world and you feel like you're in it. So that's the argument.
Yeah, I also think another thing that's convinced me about it as well is that it's quite welcoming. Like, it can be intimidating to have like a huge world book source book guide thing about a whole world, but then if you're introduced to a character immediately that's going to show you around, right, show you the ropes, then I feel like it could be quite welcoming. Whereas like the mythic Odyssey of Theros, it opens with like this epic piece of like prose about the world creation or something like that. It's very grandiose, but it's also quite intimidating. It's like, okay, this is what I'm getting myself into. Cool, but we can have that as well. But we can open with someone saying, "Hey, welcome to Avallen," kind of thing. Let's get you settled in.
and there's and another good example is this book.
Yeah, I
Lord of
love the
the Rings,
Silmarillion.
right?
That's the funny enough. I haven't read the Lord of the Rings, but I've read half of the Silmarillion, and yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's really inspired me a
Uh,
lot. Yeah,
but it's also this kind of thing like where it begins. It's very as a very objective because that's what Tolkien's into, right? That's how people wrote about history and folklore, and so that's why he's trying to write authoritatively, and it
yeah,
works.
yeah,
But it can be, like you said, it can be daunting because it feels like you're reading a history book, and unless you like history, you don't want to read a history book.
yeah,
Whereas when you do read Lord of the Rings, even though there's it is long and people might take issue with the tone, it's still from a point of view, which is Frodo,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
it's third person, but he's like the person who's like you're rooting for on this journey for the most part.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, at least in Fellowship.
Yeah.
So
So we're pretty much agreed then that there's going to be a main character that will be the narrative voice for the source book that will take you around Avallen. Now, there's still a question of whether that's going to be the case for the Game Master section. I assume so, right? It'd have to be there as well. Otherwise, what's the point? It's not the book, is it? It has to be there too. So
yeah,
yeah,
and it can be done in a way where we have a what do you call it? Two different. We can use the same character in two different approaches, and that's why I think Darren will talk about the different things we've been talking about.
yeah,
It depends. It depends on what kind of characters we decide to focus on, and that'll affect how actually we can take any of these concepts and find a way to sort of do it front end towards the player and back end facing the
Game Master.
or game master.
So what we've been discussing is who is this character, and why are they speaking to us, or why are they learning about Avallen? Why do they have this knowledge to impart? And I think now, actually, with you kind of discussing now, I realize there is another approach. Like, I think the ideas we've mostly come up with so far is someone who's learning about Avallen at the same time as you. But there is the other way of someone who's authoritative and already knows all this stuff, and they're just sharing it, right? Like,
Sure.
Have we shot that down for a reason, or is it just something we haven't really considered?
The main reason why we haven't been approaching that way is you initially indicated that you would like it if a lot of the parts from the clans are from the point of view of the person in the clan.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, I feel strongly that there should be like a unifying narrative device. So it could be a person who knows the stuff, telling a person about it, or that person's gathering the information, like a survey. Yeah. Because the issue is, sure, you take an authority, but who's the authority? Is it someone from the Tower telling you how the other clan lands are? Is it someone from Araxian that's telling you how everything is? Is it a god telling you how everything is? That becomes the issue with that idea, right? Okay, you have to figure out who the authority is, and if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah. So you're right. So I think the one thing I wanted about the book is that I actually wanted to hear from multiple voices. I didn't want to hear someone tell you about all the clans. I wanted you to speak to someone from that clan to see how they talk and how they express themselves, because that would help players and game masters in their understanding and role playing for members of that tribe and that clan, right? So they can hear what a voice is like from there. So you're right. So that means it needs to be a conversation. It needs to be one character essentially speaking to another character, or at least hearing from another character, or sharing a story that they heard from another character, that kind of thing, right?
Or having a pretense to gather things from other characters.
Yeah.
From multiple people. And so, I've come up with several potential things. So here's a part in the chat where if you're joining us and you have an idea, you can join ideas or tell us how you feel about the ones that we've come up with.
Yeah. Sure.
So we just have something written down. I don't know if you want to share them on screen or.
I guess actually I just want to recap summary. So what are we doing here? What we're discussing here? Essentially, we're saying we have a source book about our Celtic world of Avallen, and we want there to be a voice in that book that shares the world with you as you read it. They introduce topics, they give commentary on topics, and this voice is also speaking to other people in the world so that you get their opinions as well. And so you might hear from a member of a clan, a member of a tribe, and you'll hear their story, but it's always this this guide, again called a Faeseeker's Guide to Avallen. There's this someone who's guiding you through the world, and we're wondering who this person is, what they sound like, why are they sharing this with you, why did they gather this knowledge to begin with, what's the story there, do we even need a story there, or is it just left open to question as well? Like it could be that, but yeah, that's what we're just talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's fiction, no matter which way we go down, it has to feel like there's a bit of some kind of authenticity to it, right? One lore I used to like was from the card game Doomtown, which is based on the role playing game Deadlands, which was like Weird West stuff. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when they did their lore, their anchor character was a guy named Charlie Landers, who was like he used to be in the circus. He's like the short guy with like a crab foot, and he used to be in the circus because he's like a basically mutant. But he's a bar, and he's the guy that everyone talks to. So he also tells you about news in the town, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's like this kind of he's the bar. Oh, it makes sense that he would just tell you about rumors and stuff, and that's why he's telling you about. So whatever that means for our game and.
So I guess we can start with like where you first started, right? And then
sure.
The iteration.
So
you go.
Do you want me to say it, or do you want
you
to
can
talk
say
about
it?
it? Maybe no, you talk about it, and then because that's from my point of view. So you should talk about it.
Sure. So Kurt originally came up with this idea of, well, it makes sense, right? We're reading a book. Who writes books in our world? The Raxians write books. They're our Roman equivalent. The Celts didn't really write books very much. So it makes sense if it is a kind of Pliny the Elder or Caesar-like figure who's coming to our land of Avallen and is writing down what they see and experience. And that's kind of like this perfect confluence of narratives, because it's someone who's new to Avallen, just like the reader is. It's someone who has interest in exploring the world, again, like the reader is. And it's from a culture that is known to write things down and share knowledge, which is exactly what we're doing. So it kind of like ticks all the boxes. It makes sense in a meta narrative, in an in-world narrative, but we started to explore that, and I ended up poo-pooing it. I ended up saying, no, sorry, Kat, I really don't want to do it this way. And the reason was at the time that this kind of character was quite antagonistic towards the Valak, because they come from this other culture. They're imposing their own ideals on it, and that's kind of be interesting, and it can be comical in places, but it can also be looking down upon the culture, and also the reader is getting the book because they want to portray someone in this world and from that culture, and then getting all the opinions from someone outside of it kind of colors that in a strange way, when no, really we want to be inside it, right? Not outside it. So yeah.
To be fair, it colors it in a accurate way, right? Because that is how we do know about the Druids and the Celts. Because of Julius Caesar, enemy and Tacitus. But because we're not Julius Caesar, Tacitus, we don't have to be beholden to that point of view either. Because we had that point of view historically of the Romans shitting. I mean, Julius Caesar had a best buddy who was a Druid and Gaulish. So. But still, yes. Overall, they were the barbarians, and you're right. That's like the first place I kind of went with it, because historically that's how they were spoken about.
Yeah, it makes sense as well.
And us, we're still very like Western culture. If you speak English, you invariably are more aligned towards the Latin point of view, because you're almost certainly descendant of that kind of culture in some way.
And I think it would have worked as well if for some reason like our game and world started as a Roman inspired game, right? And if we began in Ataraxia, and then moved to Avallen later on, then it would be perfect. But I still think that voice should be in there, right? We will have a character that has that voice, as thing, but I don't think it should be the primary voice. So we moved on from there, although we might come back to it later, funnily enough. Then you come up with this really kind of cool, I don't use the word gnarly very often, but I'm going to say gnarly here. This gnarly narrative device where it was two Fae, or one Fae talking to another Fae, elaborating on like the crazy things that Fae is doing to humans, the tricks
Yeah.
that they're doing on them, and the conversation
Yeah,
was
so-
very weird, alien. It was very high. What's the word? Highfalutin? Is that an expression?
Highfalutin, sure.
Highfalutin, like medieval, like courtly, like
Yeah.
very above the mortal concerns, and they
Yeah,
tricked
so-
these humans and then gathered the like voices essentially in this tricksy way to then tell stories. Yeah, go on. You want to say something about it?
Yeah, well, spoiler alert for this book. So a lot of what we know about, what we think about Celtic and Welsh Irish folklore, like Darren mentioned, they didn't have writing systems back then. So a lot of what we have came after the fact, and from interpretations of stuff in archaeology and so on. And a lot of that stuff was written in the Middle Ages and after. So our point of view, modern view of these old fairy legends, even though they were talking about old fairy legends, often take after sort of medieval inventions and conventions, right?
Yeah, and I can speak directly to that. Like, there's old like Welsh legends and tales that we read in the course of our work, and they're often translated in the late medieval or even early Victorian times. And the language used is so typical to the time. They don't try and like adapt it to obviously the Iron Age. They use words like baron, like a baron, and dukes, and things like this. And it's like, well, they obviously didn't have dukes then and barons. They were chieftains or whatever, I guess what we call it now. Or I guess in the time it'd be Brennan and things like that. But yeah, they use this very medieval language to describe.
Yeah, and actually a perfect example of that is the fact that Arthur, Arthurian legend, has its roots in Celtic history.
Yeah.
It wasn't written about until the 1400s or whatever. But the original legend of Arthur are kind of in the Iron Age and take place where our game takes place. But when people wrote about them, they were trying to like reconcile it with Christianity and all that stuff. That were like
and even translations of the old Welsh tales use the word like knights, like King Arthur and his knights. It's like, well, they obviously weren't knights, right? Anyway.
Exactly. And then, so there's like 4 different versions of King Arthur that are all kind of valid and all sort of in the same time, right? You have the Iron Age King Arthur, which it could be the historically accurate version. Then you have like the Welsh medieval version of them writing about what that is. And then you have like the French Mallory version, which is like the romanticized version. And you have the English romanticized version of that.
And then you have the modern Disney depiction or whatever.
So you have all these different things. So anyway, going back to the fairy thing. So an idea we're playing around with is making the fairy kingdoms in the other world a bit more anachronistic. So even if they're a bit the real world is Iron Age, giving it a slightly more in sort of homage to the actual history, violating the history through the use of magic and the way these people talk to each other in like courtly kind of way, right? Which would kind of make sense in a way because they're dead, they're fairies in the other world, so they're spirits, and so they're not necessarily beholden to earthly.
Yeah, they live longer, they've been around longer. I think that culture would be different. The way they speak should be different too, and it should seem alien
so they could be
to the mortals.
And they could be ahead. So they're ahead of the Iron Age cultures by being more. So anyway, these letters were like almost like 2 medieval lords princelings talking to each other.
And it is really cool, and it's really like alien and stuff. I really liked it, but I poo-pooed it like the previous one because I didn't want the whole book to be like that. And the reason that was is I still want the Fae to feel alien and distant to most of the players. I still want it to be the strange thing. And if the whole book is written from that kind of Fae to Fae talking discussion stuff, it kind of, even though it's still weird and looks alien, then you'll get used to it. And I want that lost a bit. It's still going to be in the book somewhere, something like that. But it's going to be something that you discover, and it gives you a small insight into what the hell they're talking about, and you don't understand it, right? And it's just that little glimpse, like you said, making the world be big by giving you less. So I still want that kind of voicing to be there, but I don't want it to be the main thing. So then that happens, and then we're like, okay, well, instead of just trying things over and over again, we should have a discussion about it and lay out a bunch of ideas and talk about it and then decide. And 1 hour and 10 minutes into stream, that's what we're doing right now. That is now. This is the time. We're now going to decide what the voice is going to be.
So we're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. So we're going to discuss a bunch of voices and hopefully come to some kind of conclusion. Yeah. So should we rattle through the ideas that we've got?
Yeah. So I rattle off 6 ideas, and we're gonna talk about them on stream.
Yeah.
And if you're, paying attention to the chat, and even if you're not, we're gonna talk about them and see which ones we like for our book. So yeah, rattle them off, Darren.
Okay, and then there are some as well that I added thanks to a little discussion I had with Jasmine, who is one of our co-writers and my darling wife, who is an excellent writer too. Okay, so framing device A, you said an inquisitive Bubak, which is one of our most playful of the Fae, is looking to increase their presence in the Everchild's court with the help of Faeseekers. So the clan flavor text are his conversations with other Faeseekers or members of Avallen as they're gathering knowledge. So that would be from the viewpoint of a Fae, but it wouldn't be Fae talking to other Fae, it would be a Fae talking to people and getting their viewpoints. But I guess we would still get some of the internal insight, right? We'd still get exposed to some of the thinking.
So this might be my least favorite of the ideas I'm proposing. Just because, I like Bubak. When you have like a non-human character and you're still fleshing out their culture and all that stuff, and you're not talking about the culture itself, it's really easy to fall into caricature, I think. Yeah. Of like, I'm a Bubak.
Yeah, and it could just get annoying, right? It's like this childish, playful.
Exactly.
Like I feel like they would be like the quick kind of person as opposed to like a main voice kind of character.
It's like a kind of thing where we want people to get more used to these kind of conventions. Like maybe we have that character, or he's talking, or you have short stories, and then once we know the character, then later on you can subvert it with more more lengthy dive.
Funny enough, actually, in Against the Fairy Queen, we have stories from the first person perspective of a Bubak.
That's right.
But I wrote those. They don't talk though. It's just their internal experience.
Sure.
Anyway. Framing device B, a mysterious Tailwith Taig. So the Tailwith Taig, they are like ultimate Fae. They're the noble fairies of the court that advise the god, take actions for them, defeat enemies for them. They are like the princes. They're almost like demigods in a way. They are.
When you think of Oberon and Titania from Shakespeare, these are the kind of Fae that.
Yeah, exactly. So a mysterious Tailwith Taig is visiting mortals and surveying them for information. And you said exchange for granting them Fae powers. I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. It could just be them talking to people. Because the Tailwith Taig are shapeshifters as well, so they could appear in the guise of a human and and extract information from people through subterfuge and other means. But yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but the point is, it's a Fae, but it's a one that's more mysterious and more mature than a Bubak. And they probably have a very mysterious kind of omniscient kind of voice, and you probably wouldn't really understand their motives as much, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah, there's a character that comes to mind from popular media.
Yeah.
You're a big Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Have you finished Better Call Saul?
I don't think I finished. I got bored after season 3 or something, but yeah.
It was very good for regular. Anyway, there's one character from Breaking Bad who I think comes to mind for this character of a mysterious Tailwith visiting mortals and surveying them. Do you know what character I'm talking about?
No, my first thought was Gandalf.
Gandalf feels more. Gandalf feels slightly different because he's like, he wants you to know he's Gandalf for some reason. Usually, like he goes around, he's like, "I'm Gandalf. I'm gonna fucking smoke my pipe." Even though he should probably keep a low profile. No. I'm thinking of Mike from Breaking Bad. Better Call Saul.
Is he the
old guy?
The old guy who just kills people?
No, spoiler alert. And he doesn't just kill people.
But he just does things. You need something done, and he gets it done, right? No matter what it is.
Yeah, like he's always clearly serving some higher purpose than him. Mm-hmm. But he's always like changing his identity and giving different names and using his experience to his advantage. Yeah. And being kind. He has to be kind, intimidating when he needs to be intimidating, but it always feels consistent for his character.
Yeah, and you never know quite why he's doing what he's doing, but you know that he's going to get it done.
Yeah. So he's one of my favorite characters from that show for that reason. He's this really interesting character. Of course, he doesn't have to be ornery and old, like it's.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mike's an interesting character, and I imagine this being a kind of get it done type of Fae character, like with an objective and a mission and a clear goals. And that can make it interesting because a character with clear goals is whether you like them or don't like them, you want to find out. Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, framing device C, a POV of an actual Faeseeker traveling across Avallen as they try to learn all about the other clan's courts to see which court they want to be a part of. Interesting. So, Faeseekers. What is a Faeseeker? Well, mortals that pledge themselves to a fairy court and prove their worth to them can then be granted powers by that fairy court so that the court can enact their will in the mortal world more easily, because the Fae generally restrict themselves to the other world. They have business and agenda to take care of there, and so it can be useful to have mortals in their service doing things for them. So Faeseekers are those that hope to be that kind of person, and this would be the point of view of a Faeseeker traveling across Avallen as they try to learn about other clans' courts to see which court they want to be part of. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, because we do say that each of the clans is oriented towards a certain god, but you don't have to follow that god, right?
No.
So this character could be kind of a pious, like he's like a fucking nerd for the gods, but he really wants to find his right. And that's relatable, right? He wants to find where he belongs.
Yeah.
I think role players definitely can.
Well, I mean, part of this book will be players choosing their clan and then choosing their god, right? So.
So from a certain point of view, that could be a lot of fun and something that we can sympathize as players. Yeah. And he could be from Avallen. He could be from the Borderlands, for example, and not have a clan yet.
Yeah. I'm actually going to highlight this now for a reason as well. But,
yeah. So I actually kind of like that one too. If we can make Faeseeker kind of annoying, not annoying and interesting to read. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Framing device D. A traveller from elsewhere, like a Marco Polo, Volo type character that wants to accurately chronicle Avallen and its secrets for posterity. So, what started this all off was Kurt writing the viewpoint of Araxian, and I poo-pooed that and then said we should go elsewhere. But then, for some reason, this one instills different, and I think it's because the first Araxian character was kind of antagonistic, standoffish, whereas this character would probably be more invested and interested in the world. And then we were talking about it and we realised this character already exists, and her name is Porcia, and she exists against the Fairy Queen, and she travels all over Avallen chronicling everything in a book. So it's kind of perfect and there, and she has this respectful, curious interest in Avallen. So I feel like that would be a way of doing it that I'd be more comfortable with. Yeah, go on.
It still has the issue that you're worried about, which is she's not from Avallen, so are you? But her agenda, she has less of an agenda than the previous character I used.
Yeah.
Like it's more of it's coming from a place of sincerity of trying to learn, and if her character has that, then us as the readers can sort of sympathize with that possibly. Yeah. And also giving her point of view. Like for example, Volo, he's a traveler, he wants to entertain. Maybe she also wants to entertain and be a great writer.
Yeah.
And so her writing style could reflect that. Like she wants to talk about these stories, and she's like really passionate about sharing about the culture, and because she thinks that her countrymen like really they just call them barbarians, but there's so much more than that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that could be a lot of fun to read, and the advantage of that framing device too is we can address the historical issues with how the Celts were sort of covered, right?
True.
Like the only guy writing it was like Caesar, and he's just like, all right, well, fuck these guys.
Yeah. You can say like I've read Cato's guides to Avallen, and it's trash, right?
Yeah, essentially, right? Like he can be critical of the establishment, and by being critical of their countrymen, that's us being critical of and making people in the real world aware to be critical of the things they read about the Celts in real history and stuff. And that could be a lot of fun too. So I like that idea too. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah. Then framing device E. Sections are framed with the Ever Stranger, who is one of our gods, specifically the god of death, interacting with souls passing into the other world. The individual section conversations are anecdotes from the life of these souls, and they're connected by a mini subplot, i.e. the Ever Stranger notices that each of these souls he interviews was someone trying to become a Faeseeker. So someone or something in the mortal world is looking to kill or stop Faeseekers for some reason, and that gives us like a broader context for a possible antagonist that's opposing Faeseekers. So it gives a whole like narrative to the book, a deeper mystery or something like that. That's kind of fun. It's also, again, I mentioned earlier about not wanting to be the viewpoint of the Fae to keep them alien, but doing the viewpoint of a god instead might be a more bigger violation of that. But I feel like if it's a god just thinking to themselves, I feel like you're not going to get much out of it. It'd just be weird. I always think of like Death from Discworld. Like everyone loves that character.
Oh, right.
And he's literally.
I also love that character.
Well. Yeah. So.
Yeah. He's a great. That's great. Have you read any of those books?
Yes.
Have you read Discworld book?
Yeah.
More? Yeah. He's a great character.
I played the PC game as a kid. That was a bigger intro to me.
I played a little bit of that. I never finished it.
It was freaking great, dude. Discworld 2. Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of it. Yes. Sorry. So this was my favorite at first, but the more I think about it,
I know, me too. I spoke to Jasmine about it, and she was like, "What the hell are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, we're not writing a mystery novel. Like, it's."
Well, again, this is brainstorming, right?
Yeah.
This isn't.
Yeah, I know. But it was her least favorite. And I said, "What the hell are you doing?" I didn't mean you. She meant me and you. Yeah.
Oh, you gotta know that. What I do think this could be interesting for, this could be an interesting future adventure, like a 5-part adventure or something. Like kind of like Modron March, where like there's like a mystery type situation, and you have to go on these 5 adventures, but there's like 5 deaths that are associated with it, and then DM gets to see like from the point of view of death or something, and then. Anyway, that's one approach. Although I guess Fairy Queen ended up in the realm of the Ender Stranger as well, so I guess we can't really use that again.
Yeah, we should do a different god. Yeah,
we'll be restepping. But
that's a big spoiler actually.
Spoiler alert! Yeah. Well, I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, you're a game master, so please buy the game.
Yeah. Okay. So then device F. The original breaks the device, a short test that, and then G and H. These are ideas that I came across while talking to Jasmine after talking about all the other ones. And then she basically just said 2 things. One, she said, okay, this is not how I thought the book was going to be at all. She thought they were still sticking to like the collage scrapbook kind of approach that we had in the original Avallen, where it would just be snippets of lots of different things, lots of different voices all over the shop with no necessary like combined narrative. And I said that no, we've kind of gone down this way, and she was like, okay, fair enough. And then instead, in which case then the book's called A Faeseeker's Guide to Avallen. Is kind of what you said to me as well. Like it should just be a Faeseeker going around Avallen. And like keep it simple, stupid, right? And we kind of, what was the things I wrote down? I said, POV of an actual Faeseeker traveling across Avallen as they try to learn all about the clan courts. And then I said, but their own clan court section is told from their point of view. Because obviously they would have a clan and a court they belong to. And that could be from their point of view, which can give you a better insight into their character, which could be interesting. And then what did I say? The character can see the worth of Rexian books and wants to make one for their own people, perhaps after meeting Corsia. We still need to justify it being a book. I don't think we necessarily have to do that, but if we want to, then that could be done that way. You go, sorry.
So this is pretty similar to the framing device C of an actual Faeseeker.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But instead of it being someone looking for a court to join, this is someone that's already in a court and they're maybe slightly more senior. But yeah, I guess they're kind of both very similar. It's just a question of seniority.
Well, yeah. What I like about this is it could be if it's from an experienced Faeseeker, they can be sort of a guide for future Faeseekers kind of thing. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like a mentor figure to the reader, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's basically what she said. She's like, it should be like a mentor figure.
So she agreed with me then, because we decided to call it a Faeseeker's Guide to Avallen.
Yeah.
It should probably be from the point of view of a Faeseeker, or like, yes, obviously the person's a Faeseeker, but you want to become this kind of person, right? So having it be a Faeseeker senpai helps.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess part of them, the maturity of it being is that they would say that, they could have written everything if they wanted to, but that wouldn't be a responsible way of doing things. Instead, they're going to go out and talk to people and get their first-hand experience to record, where they don't want to just sit in an ivory tower and just write down everything they know. They want to give first-hand accounts. I don't know if we have to spell that out, but that's what I'm thinking about. Justifying why they're even putting all the effort in when they could just write it down themselves. Well, that's why.
Sure. Yeah, I like this one. It's similar to the ideas that we had. It's similar to C or D.
Yeah, it's basically just a riff off your C1. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just a natural conclusion to come to, which is fun. And then what's the last idea?
And the last one is one I thought of by myself, which means it's probably terrible. But it's POV of an actual Faeseeker again, but instead of talking to random folk in Avallen, they're talking to the fellow adventuring party members who are from other clans. So there's a party that you're following, and they're recording the campfire story moments where they're talking to the other adventuring friends and asking them about their past and their history and where they've come from and that kind of thing, and recording that. And I figured that could be kind of fun because you can have the friendship playful back and forth between people. You can develop relationships between the characters. It's you can see that they have a joking relationship with this one, but clearly with this other character there's something deeper that's happened in the past. That kind of adds some tension there, and it could basically you get some insight into some relationships between people, and that can always be a fun thing to explore as well. Yeah.
So this is the specific, I think, TV trope says as campfire character exploration.
If that's the thing, then yes, yeah. And Zilfius is like an accompanying bard of sorts. Yeah, exactly. Well, not every, but all of it. In fact, actually, I like in Legends of Avallen, every party needs to have a character like this because it's literally explicitly written into the rules of the game. You cannot level up in Legends of Avallen unless you've recorded your legend somehow. You can do it personally, but someone can also do it for the whole group as well. Whether that be writing it down, through song, through poetry, drawing, whatever. Someone needs to record the legend for you to level up, and so that would be this character essentially talking to their companions. So the accompanying, the bard of the group.
Yeah, I mean, the merits of this idea is, one, the reason we come to these books as game masters and players is because we love that experience, right? Mm-hmm. Of being a person who's part of a fellowship.
Yeah, fellowship.
We want to be in the fellowship. We want to be in the fellowship, right? Yeah. So if you create one person from each clan, and it makes sense that they're traveling together and they have a mission, they're helping their Faeseeker friend get it, but then so that's why the idea is good. The idea why it can be tricky is because of that character baggage, right? Because that story, this might not be the best vehicle for it.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you start hearing people talk about this stuff and they start talking about their own stuff, it comes off as it can come off as inauthentic because of the context. Because I'm not that'd be like if I was hanging out with you and for the benefit of someone who we don't see, we're like, by the way, Darren, can you tell me about how you grew up and where you're from? Even though we've been traveling together for fucking 2 months.
Yeah.
Well,
my way of saying it is that obviously the pretense is that they're writing it down in a book, and I'm guessing one of the characters will think it's stupid, right?
Stupid, sure.
Yeah, another one would think it's great, and you'd have that back and forth depending as well, which also can kind of show off the different opinions there are in Avallen about recording things down and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah. Right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it could be. It's a fun idea. It's a question of because you're already whether or not we'll have the economy, like the word economy or the how do you say it? The emotional character economy to sort of explain that and to delve into it. Because then you have to start going down these sidetracks for characterization, right?
Yeah.
Whereas part of the reason you use these, for example, in Framing Device G or whatever, the Faeseeker traveling and gathering information, we have a whole body of literature that uses that point of view, right? Travel literature and informational literature and interviews.
We don't have to waste space on, like you said, subtle side plots and subplots that involve writing. It'd be a lot easier and more efficient.
Because it has a point. Because it has a specific point of view. But when you do with a character, there's 5 characters, it becomes it doesn't just become one point of view anymore. It becomes like several points of view, and then the
like I
could
just imagine for like the Faeseeker going to places and interviewing people thing. Like the setup for a bit there is like I approached this Penkawa farmer and asked them about this, and that's all the setup that you need, and you know that you're getting perspective from like a random peasant essentially, and that's the voice that you're hearing. Whereas the other one's like I approached my companion, named this, we've done this together, and I asked them to record notes, and then they said this and that, and then I get the story, right? There's like way more setup and
exactly. So, there's a rule for that. Oh, well, before I talk about that rule, Zilphius says also they had a Discord for their game when it ran, and you had a channel for the players to record the journey. Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. We kind of have that in. Yeah. People can record their adventures in Avallen, in the official Legends of Avallen Discord. So
yes, if you do that, put the things there. And I will say as well that I should speak about our Lysera character from our playtests. Our gamer, our playtester, he was excellent at note taking, and he basically wrote down the entire year-long campaign, almost word for word. While we were playing it, he would take notes about it, and there are pages and pages of Google Docs somewhere that he's recorded that have the whole campaign written out.
Do you want to send it to me so I can novelize against Fairy Queen?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it actually. I thought about it literally yesterday again because of the Wood and Potatoes thing. He was talking about novelizations of games, and it's like we could easily novelize against the Fairy Queen story. It's a pretty interesting, compelling story, I think.
You could actually, sorry. Side note that we can get back. Would you be interested in releasing that as? Could that be a stretch goal? Like, because like Let's Plays are kind of popular in Japan. I don't know how they are in America, but you could release like the notes and transcripts, like edited, and then a full novelization of Against Fairy Queen as a book.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of thing. I think while we're running the campaign, I wouldn't mind talking to the backers and saying, hey, what would you be interested in? Are these different ideas?
Sure. Oh, I'm doing like
like a poll.
Anyway, something to think about. Yeah. Let's talk about that later. Sorry, where were we? We're getting about the adventures and.
I think.
So anyway, point of view.
You go
on. No, I mean just basically the point of view with our characters. I love that idea, but it feels like it might not be the best vehicle.
Yeah. So I think I would kind of like settling. Now, I feel like myself just landing on, okay, this is going to be an experienced Faeseeker. They're going to be imparting what they know onto future Faeseekers and explorers and adventurers of Avallen. They don't just want to have their own viewpoint, even though they do know a lot. So they're taking the effort to go and talk to other people to get first-hand accounts that can be recorded so that, I guess, the work is more trustworthy. And we could also include the idea of them reading other Raxian books, right? They've seen what the Raxians have been writing, and they want to kind of set the record straight as well. So I think I'm kind of settling on that. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I like that. It just because the question is if the other important point about voice is that the voice is something we're happy with, right? Yeah. Because now that we have this training device,
exactly. It doesn't say anything about what the character's like, right? We still have to decide what they're like.
Is he reliable? Is he unreliable? Yeah. Is it he? Is it a she? Is it a they?
Yeah.
Are they, what clan are they from? Are they funny? Are they somber? There's all these different things that we can figure out. Now I'm going to write a draft for it, I believe. But I guess my question for you, Darren, then is:
I think we should talk about what kind of character it is.
Yeah. We shouldn't, or we should?
We should. I think we should discuss.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So what in your gut? What kind of character do you want to read about? That
my initial thing is because it's going to be a mentor. They have to be aspirational. Like my brain immediately went to Dritz for some reason. Like Dritz.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I don't know what his voice is like. That's the thing. I don't know. I don't know why I thought of it. I just thought of cool adventuring characters that people like and
now
want to be.
Is it Dritz or Drizzit?
Dritz. I don't know.
Anyway, Dritz. Let's say it's Dritz.
Yeah.
The thing about Dritz is he's cool, but he's very. To me, he has like J syndrome. He's like the sort of cool guy with the cool guy hero,
Mysterious,
like
yeah.
the tortured gothic hero type, which I don't think lends well to. I mean, you can like obviously there's a guide to so much. There's books like that. I think I actually haven't read that though, but I liked Dritz, and because he was cool, but I never necessarily liked his voice personally.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. That's why I brought it up, because I wanted to hear your take.
A person like from fantasy. Okay, let's think of from fantasy literature. Okay, if you were going to have this book written by one of the Fellowship of the Ring, who would you want to write it?
I was about to say Sam, but then I went to Mary instead.
Me too. I said Mary too. I was like, dude, Mary would be so fun to read, right? He's imagine Mary.
It's obvious Dritz is too edgy for you. Yeah, exactly. I think that's yeah.
But imagine if it was fun. Like Mary. Yeah. Imagine if Mary did all his adventures and he's an old man, and then he's telling you about all the adventures he went on to like the next generation.
It's funny because Lord of the Rings is actually written by Frodo.
Oh no, it's third person omniscient.
I know, but isn't it framed as like he finishes the book, like he found his uncle's book from The Hobbit, and then he's finishing it. I'm pretty sure it's him finishing the book, like following on from Bilbo.
Damn it, I don't remember anymore. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Turn of the Beginning.
Yeah, Bilbo wrote it and Frodo finished it. Yeah.
So, I guess it is from Frodo's point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So the question is like, we want this character to be mentory and aspirational, which made me think of cool characters, right? But then making it fun to read, like I guess is a different thing. And I guess the interviews, like the quotes we're getting from the real people, they're going to be quite serious sometimes as well. And so then maybe we do want it to be like a fun-ish character, someone who's seen a lot. Is I guess I'm kind of going towards more Gandalf again. Like he has that kind of fun thing to him, right? He's obviously wise, he knows so much, but he's still talking to the little man, having a good time, lighting fireworks and smoking pipes, and hanging out with Mary.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm leaning towards old man Mary. Right?
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Like old man Mary, or not necessarily old man, but yeah, a Mary who's seen a lot and has seen a lot, and maybe what I like about Mary especially, I guess, is the very lackadaisical, like almost like an airheady type character, but because of his experiences and so on, has become like this veteran. Yeah, and that's fun too. Like, because then you feel that change in the character and how they're.
Yeah, was it Mary or was it Pippin that became like the Knight of Gondor, like Gondor's steward?
Was that Pippin?
One of them goes with the Treants and one of them goes with Gondor, right? Is that right?
I think.
Yeah.
Doesn't Pippin go with the?
Gondor.
Pippin goes with the.
Yeah, now I'm like about to.
Pippin goes to Gondor. Yeah, hold on. Pippin goes to Gondor. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I honestly, the two characters I get confused the most in Lord of the Rings. Like they're the same person, right? Almost. I guess they kind of differentiate them in the movies, but I'm sure it's the same in the books. But I always forget.
Pippin enlists the army of Gondor, and then let's see here. So Pip goes with the army of Gondor, and then Mary goes with the Trents, right?
Yeah. So Pippin, eventually returns with the other hobbits to the Shire and helps lead the scouring of the Shire and becomes a Thane, a hereditary leader of the land. Yeah.
Mary enlists with Rohan.
Oh, Rohan, that's right. Oh yeah, and he rides with what's her face when she defeats the Witch King.
So yeah, it's I like the idea of I like that idea. But what do you think, Sophia? Yeah, because here I like Gandalf too, but the problem with Gandalf is it's too like
he's too powerful. He's like the Tell the Tape, like I said before. Yeah.
Yeah, or he's also just outlined.
Yeah, maybe I would have finished the Lord of the Rings if it was written by Mary instead of Frodo. Right? Frodo's too dour and down and he has too much gravity. He saw too much shit, whereas Mary just saw just enough shit, you know?
Sure.
So I'm kind of down with that. Like, someone who got into adventuring for the lark.
Yeah.
The laugh of
Arguably,
it.
Frodo's like that too, though. Frodo is also a person who wanted to take it easy and was forced into not being allowed to take it easy.
Yeah,
so
but it was too much. He had to bring it. It got corrupted. It's messed up.
They think someone more like Mary Pippin is good. I mean, another interesting thing too is with Faeseeker's guide is, unlike Gandalf has power, right? He is too OP, like Zilphia says.
Yeah.
But the point of being a Faeseeker is you need to want to seek power for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so this person, you can talk about their reasons.
Yeah.
Their reasons, and we don't know what it is yet, right?
Yeah.
Like
there's a darkness in the back somewhere. Yeah, but it's
they wanted something, and so they had to. It could be reluctant. It could be they make the deal with the Fae and they're very cautious about it for whatever reason, but they have to sort of go through it and see it through, and that could be interesting as well. So,
well, but the other side of it though is what happened to Merry and Pippin, right? Where they kind of ended up too deep, and then still they didn't have to join up with the armies. They could have gone home, but they wanted to see what it was like, and then it ended up being darker, and it changed them, but arguably for the better, right? They kind of matured through it.
Sure. They become more than hobbits.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, but I guess for us then that basically is saying, does the darkness lead them to wanting to get the Fae power, or does gaining the Fae power expose them to darkness? And I guess probably want to make the Fae part brighter, right? I mean, I know there's risks as well, but we don't want to make it sound too doomy and gloomy. Otherwise, what's the point? So probably the past, like you said before, would be better. What does Zilphia say, Kurt?
Either of them could make a pledge with the Fae. They're silly enough to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because, I mean, and the way the character, like, if the character has like layers to him or them, it could have that kind of layer of like, I was just foolish. I was like, well, obviously, it would be a great adventure. I want the powers, and I learned what came with it. Yeah, I got a lot of great things from it, but also, I had to do some heinous stuff I'm not proud of, or I had to see things that I wasn't prepared to see, and I'm warning you that, do it if you need to, but go into it with a level head. Like, it could be a sobering thing, right? Like, it could be lighthearted and fun, and understand why someone would take this path as them, but also offer up sobering truths and about the other world. And
cool. I'm a slight disappointed. I thought we were gonna have a big discussion and it'd be very debatey, but we kind of like fallen into this thing, and it kind of feels right, which is good too. So we
didn't fight, but we debated about things related to this a few nights ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
But
I'm still against there being, again, multiple characters that I've seen in different sections. I don't want it to happen. I want it to be different characters every section.
Sure. Yeah, and that's, I mean, like, if they have if they're totally different, and that's okay, because it's like GM facing versus player facing. But as we develop, as things keep developing, we'll definitely make these choices. Much like the Fellowship made these choices on their way to Mordor.
Yeah. So I guess one thing is that we do have a Faeseeker on the cover art, right? Do we want this character to be that character? Does that make sense? Or is that no good? Does that character not look like a Merry Pippin kind of character? You know what I mean?
I think we write the character first,
and
then figure out what they look like, who they are, rather than, I mean, maybe it is, maybe this Faeseeker is a light-hearted pen-levy warrior, maybe.
Yeah, who became a Faeseeker for the Evermother's Court.
I mean, that is an interesting story too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, why would a pen-levy nomad worship the Evermother? He's tired of violence or something, maybe tired of the scavenger life, or she wants to see something better for her people. Yeah. And she's, maybe she's worried that
she wants to bring growth back to the pen-levy.
Yeah, like, and maybe she still worships the Everstranger too. But yeah, that's a good point too. She could be like an optimist, like a badass warrior optimist who's doing her best. I'm not against it. Like, I'll.
Yeah, but we shouldn't force it, I think. Just because we have the artwork, right? The artwork is also aspirational. It could be a different character to aspire to, right? There could be a character that our protagonist meets in the book, right? Actually, we only have a little bit of time. I realized there is something I was supposed to ask you. In that,
Yes.
we're discussing about this now. Is there anything else that you'd want to talk about or discuss about this character before you come up with a draft from the point of view? Is there anything you'd want to ask or inquire my viewpoint on?
I guess how far along on their Faeseeker? So we're saying that they're part of the fairy court, right?
Yeah, I think not part of the fairy court, but yeah, they belong to.
So part of they're a Faeseeker that's received powers from the fairy court or whatever.
I mean, we could do a twist of it. They could have fallen from grace. They could have lost their powers. Like we can do things like that. That things can be of interest there. But again, maybe it's too much intrigue. But yeah, go on. What are your thoughts?
I mean, intrigue is intriguing.
Yes.
So yeah, Zofia agrees with us. Thank you, Zofia, for agreeing. They are very pretty. Yeah, I guess there's not a specific question. Okay, maybe the question I could ask is, as a reader, because every reader is going to be different.
Mm.
What impression do you want from this character? Like when you read them, like obviously you want to read more about them, like that they're interesting or whatever. But you have this impression that they're like a badass, that they're cool, that they have a tragic, like all these cliches we can throw out there. But is there anything you could point out that you wish that you're hoping to see from the Faeseeker in this position? Like, I think, in terms of the overall impression?
I think I really do think we kind of nailed it with Merry and Pippin. And like, no, I didn't really, I kind of knew it, but like knowing that, they later came back to the Shire and like fucking destroyed all the orcs there, led a battle against them, and like they were leaders, and then they became leaders of the Shire, so they kind of have this badassness to them as well. Like, I think it's kind of perfect, really. Like, a character that started off foolhardy, got into something darker, that was deep. They matured a bit, but they still have that kind of fun-loving attitude to them, but they've also done badass things in their time. Like, I think... I mean, Aragorn kind of has that thing. Like, when you first meet him, he's like this edgy guy in a hood, right? It's like, oh, that guy's so cool. But he has, like, some fun and then later on some charm to him as well. It kind of comes out. And then the fact that he's a badass makes him even more badass, that he's so personable and open, right? Like, he's not edgy for the sake of being edgy. So I think a character like that, where they're fun, they know how to have a good time, but they've seen some stuff and they know how to handle themselves, is kind of maybe the ideal spot.
Like an Aragorn, like Driss is kind of like grimdark, but like an Aragorn could be kind of fun. Zilphia is actually kind of relatable to the characters, but superior due to experience. That's important. I mean, I think that's the kind of person you want to listen to, and I would read something by Aragorn for sure.
It's just like, so for example, like the Witcher series, right? Geralt is fucking cool. He's absolute badass, right? But the books are fun as well, but you read them, they're from his point of view, and it's so dry. Like, he has a dry wit sometimes, which can be fun, but it's not actually that fun to read from Geralt's point of view. I would rather read it from the Bard's point of view. What's his name? I forget the name of the Bard, but the Bard's hilarious, right? I'd rather read it from his point of view, but he's not badass, so he's just kind of a joke. A middle ground there is good, and I think Merry Pippin in the later years is kind of that.
I think maybe another good fantasy work to point to is Song of Fire and Ice. Song of Ice and Fire. Song of Fire and Ice, right? Wait,
I actually don't know. I think it's Ice and Fire.
A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
So, A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm not a huge fan of J.R.R. Martin's writing, to be honest, so I only finished like the first 2 or 3.
Really, I bounced off the first one in a few chapters, but I do that a lot. That's just kind of become apparent. It's true.
But I mean, but for me, the chapters are always the most fun to read were Tyrion, right? Like the person who's like, he's smart.
Yeah.
He has a lot of adversity in his life, and he starts off as a person that doesn't really care, but then he's kind of thrust into this family, and he gets betrayed a lot and all that stuff. And the book is a lot darker, I think, than the TV series was. But there's something about Tyrion. There's a reason why Tyrion is
Very
one of the most popular characters.
Yeah.
Because he's smart and he has to deal with a lot of shit because he wasn't dealt a perfect hand like a lot of other people were.
Yeah.
And those are characters we as humans can relate to.
I think where we're kind of landing is kind of the lovable rogue kind of character, right?
Yeah.
Like
lovable rogue, sure. That's fair, yeah. I mean, and that's also like what Volo was.
Yeah.
So I'll see if I can come up with a likable, fun character who can express the world in a way that feels authentic, but still kind of leave enough where you want to read more, but you're still not sure whether or not everything's on the level, right? Like, he's probably telling us everything. Probably. Probably. Yeah. That can be interesting. Much like your host of this stream on Etterstone Games, we're probably telling you a lot.
Yeah.
Probably. But not everything. Well, we're hitting time. It's 10:02. So
we kind of went over today. We're having fun. I could talk more, really, but this was a really fun one. Yeah. This is good, because I felt like we needed to have this discussion, and so it was nice to have a time slot we got dedicated to say, yeah, we can talk for lore narrative storytelling for 2 hours. Yeah.
Sure. And then and realizing that, man, there's a lot of books to read. I'm gonna just keep reading. That's the other thing.
Yeah, speaking of that Fae book you recommended has arrived. It's wrapped up on my table. I still haven't opened it yet, but it has arrived.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
I just heard it yesterday. It's a very cool book.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zilphia, for taking a good listen chat. And Zilphia is on day 1 of her perfect day 2.
I mean, that's not fair. She's like day 3 of her streak, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Week 3.
I think we can count retroactively back.
Yeah, week 3 of her perfect attendance streak. So keep it going, Zilphia. And if you want to join Zilphia's cheers, Zilphia, on the chat, join us next week. Same Avallen time, same Avallen channel. I'm Kurt. This is Derek. Yeah. And we'll talk more about.
Oh, dude, I had some things to show off on stream, and we didn't. I got so distracted and invested that I didn't even do it. So we'll do it next week instead.
Next week it is.
Show off some of the emblems that Chrissy made.
Or next week.
Next week. Yeah.
Oh, can we have Chrissy on the stream?
Can do. Sure.
let me talk about it first before. She's pretty busy right now, so I probably can't get her. But anyway, do our thing. Have a great week, Sylvia. We'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
Enjoy your weekend and all that stuff.
Take it easy, everyone. Peace.